Single salute. I'm Lord Maitreya, the hip hop futurist. You're now tuned into the Super Longevity Institute podcast. This evening, I have a very special guest. He is a New York City based director, visual effects artist, and Emmy Award winning cinematographer. He has also worked as an editor, camera operator, and stereographer, and has a variety of professional experience behind him, including working with clients such as Lexus, Motorola, Cat Footwear, Spotify, Discovery, TLC, 3Net, and Nickelodeon. He holds a BA in film production from Webster University and has also served as an adjunct professor there teaching stereoscopic cinema. He also serves as an adjunct professor at Pratt teaching VR and film and video in the video department. He has also directed multiple short films that have played in a variety of festivals, including San Diego Film Festival, IndieMemphis, Atlanta Shortfest, the 3D Film Festival at Sundance, and has won awards for Best Dramatic Short Film, Cinematography, and Visual Effects. His latest short film, 392% Kickstarter funded and staff picked The Last Generation to Die, is currently being adapted and in development as his first feature. He is also currently completing the pilot to a co-developed sci-fi series called The Hive, being executive produced by Liddy Wachowski, co-director of The Matrix. Ladies and gentlemen, hip-hop futurist transhumanist worldwide, Tim Maupin. How you doing? Welcome to the Institute, my brother.
Good, thank you. Great. Thanks for having me, man. It's good to hang out and chat with you again. So,
yeah, I like to read people's bio off. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times, it's hard to just compartmentalize, tell everybody's bio in like 5 or 10 minutes. But I just try to. People don't even read people's bios no more, so I just want to read people's bios. I don't want to get it wrong, so I just read off what I see from your website or from any information that I've gathered that's on the internet. But what you been up to, bro?
Well, let's see. Quite a few things. I mean, now that it seems like we're getting a little closer. There's light at the end of the tunnel with the pandemic. So basically, I'd say I guess the biggest focus is the feature adaptation of The Last Generation to Die short film, which I don't know. I'm sure maybe your audience knows that you were a part of a couple of years ago. So I always have people comment on that part too, so that you did. So that's kind of been my biggest focus, and we're in early development and we're in the funding stages. So we've over the next few months, we'll be pitching to investors and just getting the ball rolling on a lot of fronts. So that's we have a full length script. And everything. I'd say that's kind of where a lot of my energy goes. But at the same time, I do part-time work for LEAF, the Life Extension Advocacy Foundation, the Lifespan Extension. The name just got changed. And so I do various video projects for them. One is called Science to Save the World, which is just a short, simple kind of internet video series that takes a look at various problems that various, whether it's ecological or some of them are related around aging, but essentially like it takes a science focus on a lot of the world's problems and kind of offers the audience a way to help toward the end of it. And then I'm also doing something for them called Lifespan Docs, which is very much kind of longevity related, but it's basically interviewing people who are a little bit older and kind of established, and kind of asking them why they benefit from living longer, and just kind of getting into their life a little bit. So that's a series that I've got 2 done, and we're working on a couple more now. Yeah. So I think those are kind of the main things. And then the series Hive you mentioned is still kind of ongoing. That's in a festival right now called Series Fest, and we can announce that. I was just like, but yeah, it's official. It's out there now. And then I have another short film called Monument that myself and a friend of mine co-directed, and that's also in festivals right now. And so we're about to head out to actually, I don't know if I can say this one yet, but yeah, so we're at a couple of festivals, and that's kind of making its way through the festival season. So
can you tell people? Can you tell my audience what the plot of The Last Generation to Die was about?
Yeah, so the short film started out really simply as just so basically it's a scientist who works at a biotech firm. She's been like a pioneer behind a lot of the aging research and stuff like that, and they're about to do a like one of the first human trial to reverse aging. It's funny as I talk about this stuff, some of these things are like
Mm,
slowly becoming more and more in focus in terms
yeah,
of what's happening in the science world.
definitely.
But so this is what's happening at her company, and her father, who's aging, in his 70s, he ends up having a heart issue. So she tries to get him on the trial. She has to pull some strings to do that. There's some back
Wow.
and forth. He's kind of against it in the beginning. So there's sort of not a tug of war, but, sort of typical father-daughter relationship, he doesn't really approve of everything that she does and so forth. And then in the feature version, that was kind of the short. So in the feature film version, we're expanding that out, taking that further, and then also at the same time, her mother and
Mm,
the older man's wife, basically during the course of the movie, while he's getting better, so he's on the trial, he's actually seeing the benefit and starting to have kind of personal conflicts about it and everything. His wife falls ill, and so you have this kind of interesting dynamic where she's
right.
getting worse and he's getting better. She's telling him to stay on the trial. He's feeling guilty, So, and then meanwhile, Lily, the daughter, is kind of wrapped up in everything and trying to keep it going. There's a few more like smaller threads tying in the socio-political
Mm,
aspect and the economical aspect and so forth. So that's I don't want to. There's a few other things that happen, but I don't want to give away too much. But that's kind of the gist. So
wow. Sounds very exciting, and I can't wait to see it on. I can't wait to s- see it once it gets on the big screen. I've been waiting for a long, long time. I
me
really
too,
like.
man. Me too.
I know it's gonna be dope. It's a great concept. Great concept.
Thank you,
How did
man.
what led you on? Well, let's go back a little bit. How did you get started as a filmmaker? Like, what made you wanted to get into film?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I've always had kind of a creative flair, and back in high school, I did some video stuff. At that time, it was more just sort of experimenting and playing around. I think started out like
Mm,
most kids probably do, but I was really interested in visual effects. I remember reading like special effects magazines and things like
wow.
that.
Mm,
And then, when I started getting my hands on a video camera and some editing gear at that time, I started. I kind of fell in love with it, and I'd say for I guess the last 2 years of high school, I really kind of got into it, and then post high school, I sort of in trying to figure out what to do with pressure from parents to do
mm,
something more realistic and not go to art school or whatever.
mm,
I kind of I wouldn't say I was still sort of working on it in some ways, but I sort of went a different path for a little bit. Went into computer programming, and then of
mm,
course I found it again though a few years later and went back to school and got my film production degree. So it's always sort of been there, I think. And once I went back to school, I kind of it just felt right. It was like I'm so
mm,
glad I kind of reconnected with it. And so through film school and to the
wow.
last decade or so of working in the industry, I've just continued to go and continue to learn and make films. And yeah, it just
Mm,
I still think it's one of the most powerful art forms. When you see a movie that's really
definitely,
good, it yeah.
definitely. Um, what got all right? Were you a life extensionist before you did the Last Generation to Die? Started working on Last
No, not
Generation
not
to Die.
really, to be honest. So the story there is I just when I made the short film a handful of years ago, um, I just kind of stumbled upon. Basically, I was reading a book by Michio Kaku called Physics of the Future, and there was a chapter in it about the future of medicine and how that might go, and there was a little tiny part about sirtuins and how these things might end up being an avenue into the scientific aspect of slowing aging. And at the same time, I had another short film that I was kind of working on. It was about an older father and daughter relationship. And
Mm,
then when I read that, it just like kind of immediately synced that this is like prior to that, I was sort of trying to figure out the story between the father and daughter. And when I
mm,
read that, I was like, oh my god, like this could be really interesting if she's if this is set in the future and she's trying to
mm,
administer some technology to save him. And then it all just kind of fell into place. And then basically from there I'll be honest, at that time, I was just more curious. I just thought it was an interesting idea. Probably like many people kind of get into it. You're
Yeah,
not aware of like how much, especially nowadays, how much is actually going on.
yeah,
And, so I kind of slowly over the course of making the film and, now in the last, couple of years, I've really become,
mm,
everything I've sort of learned about it in terms of, there are certainly, I think, there's some grand issues that need to be thought about
mm.
carefully and figured out. But I think by and large, it makes a lot of sense, and we could probably spend many
Yeah.
hours talking about all that. But essentially, yeah. So over time, I've become a little bit
Wow,
more of a believer. So
that's great. So while working on on the film about life extension, you actually became a life extensionist. What a wonderful! That's
yeah, yeah.
wonderful.
That's I've never really quite succinctly thought about it, but yeah, that's actually true. So
That's actually wonderful, man. And we don't have too many films with this type of narrative, which makes it very unique. I can't think of anything like it. Um, is any do you think that you will do other films along these lines, or what other films do you see yourself doing? As far as sci-fi, do you think you'll be doing more sci-fi in the future?
yeah, it's funny because I was on a Q&A today for a film festival, and they kind of asked if sci-fi was my friend and I's sort of main thing, and I never really had planned like in film school. It wasn't anything I set out to. It wasn't like my. Honestly, don't even really watch a lot of sort of classic
Mm,
sci-fi, I guess.
interesting.
Um, but I do. I'm really interested in technology. Looking back, I realize I always have been. And also science. I'm very, I read a lot of articles. Sort of an armchair scientist in a way. I really enjoy those two fields, and so the blending of the cinematic world and technology and science just continues to be interesting to me. And I mean, I think there's a lot of territory there. I mean, especially now with technology moving as fast as it is, there's constantly something, and to the point where it's actually redefining how we are literally how we are as humans. And so, as you know well, like it will certainly continue to do that in really profound ways. So
Mm,
I think there's a lot of territory. I mean, clearly, there's shows like Black Mirror and there's all sorts of stuff that
yeah,
really cover it. But for me, I'm really interested mostly, I think, in trying to take a very, as much as possible, a very realistic approach. Not necessarily be dystopian. I think I understand why a lot of films set in the future are, and I think sometimes it
yeah,
can be a useful thing to sort of quote unquote run a simulation through cinema, so you see how bad something could actually turn out. I think it can be a powerful way to go, but
mm,
but and I wouldn't say I'm necessarily like I want to make really positive films that are just lollipops and rainbows all the time because that's not real life or whatever.
mm,
So I think it's more about just trying to paint a fairly realistic portrait of the future and just try to investigate sort of philosophically how these things will play out. And my personal take on it is I think there's enough drama in humans
mm,
alone that you don't really have to like create this always it doesn't always have to be this nefarious
yeah.
company or
I
whatever,
agree.
like again, so that's kind of my take on sci-fi, I guess. I sort of liken it more to a drama in the future rather than sci-fi. So
Yeah, I I like the Last Generation to Die plot because it raises so many ethical questions. And, it raises a lot of ethical questions for me, and because one person wants to die a natural death and the other doesn't, right?
mhm.
Is it the wife that doesn't want to die? What is
Well,
that the
in the
wife
beginning
that,
of the film,
or
it's the father,
the father wants to
yeah, the
die of a
older
natural
man.
death, right?
Yeah, he's sort of resistant, and he's sort of to him from his generation,
Right.
that's just the way things go, or whatever. And she's obviously on a completely opposite side, and the mother is sort of in the middle. Like I
Mm,
said, I don't want to say too much the way it goes. It's also like you have to really dive in to explain some of it, but she's a bit more neutral, and so sort of plays this interesting middle ground that we can use
oh, wow.
dynamically. So
Um, what was your? Do you remember when you bought your first video camera?
I do, so my parents were not ones to really, get big things for Christmas or anything like that. It was always, I'd say average middle class or whatever. But one Christmas, I convinced my dad to get a video camera, which was like after I think at that time I believe I had been playing with it. I think I had been playing with my aunts. They had one or something, and I just like I told you earlier, I really fell in love with it, and I just for whatever reason he must have been
Wow.
in a good mood or something that year, but they got me a video camera, and
Hmm.
yeah, and I mean I would say I did thoroughly use it. I mean I did make a lot of use of it. I tried when I was a teenager, I tried to make a horror film. I tried to
Oh wow.
never quite finished it, but it's like
Mm,
somewhere those tapes are sitting, and I've told myself sometimes it'd be fun to go back and try to to make this
mm,
sort of teenage horror film, but so yeah, that was I actually don't remember the year for sure, but sometime in the mid to late '90s. So
are you gonna do anything 3D type of thing with like they did in the Avatar? Because I remember going to the movies. I think the last movie I seen in the theater. I know this is bad. It was Avatar, and we
oh
had the
wow,
glasses. We had the 3D glasses. It was so dope. Um, do you
yeah,
think that I know you're into VR too, right?
yeah,
Virtual reality.
yeah, I've definitely tinkered quite a bit with it. I mean, I have a VR system, and again, I think this points to just my interest in technology. Sort of side by side with cinema. When I was in film school, was around the time actually Avatar came out around the time I was finishing film school,
Mm,
and I at the time I basically just prior to that, before Avatar came out and really blew up or whatever, I had been experimenting with just putting two cameras side by side, which is how you create stereoscopic vision. And so I just been running around shooting stuff with that and putting it together, and I did one of my two senior films as a 3D film. So had sort of like planned out the shots and everything with the two cameras. And at that time, again, it was pretty
mm,
like not new. I mean, stereoscopic cinema has been around for a very long time, but it was definitely kind of coming back in a way that wasn't possible before because of the digital technology.
mm,
But so anyway, I did that, and then I actually kind of followed that a little ways after film school. I worked on a bunch of 3D projects that were just I think I worked on a commercial, music video. I worked on a feature film, and as a stereographer, which is the person who basically kind of pretty much like sees how well the 3D works all the way through. Like there's a lot of
mm,
parameters that can decide how specific or how strong the 3D is, and then you can of course
mm,
you can kind of get into a little bit more of an art with that. Like how carefully you want to use, how
mm,
much you want to use, like so for a short time I was very very interested in it, and
mm,
then after the Avatar sort of thing blew up, I mean
mm.
it kind of went like this and then started to go back down in terms of
Yeah.
popularity. And now of course you have a lot of 3D films, but most of them are either CG like Pixar or whatever, or they are done in post where they take, they don't shoot it in stereoscopic. Usually they do all that work in post production.
Right. Right. Right.
And I honestly think very soon, personally, I think artificial intelligence and deep learning and all that's going to be doing a lot of stereoscopic stuff, kind of,
Mm,
not automatically, but we're already seeing a lot of really great, pretty powerful stuff that's shifting images and things like that in terms
mm,
of spatially and all that. And volumetric cinema, I think, is kind of going to
mm.
eventually rise. Yeah, there's so many things that I think will eventually change the shape. But I think cinema, honestly, is here to stay. So, I think it's just like I said, it's such a powerful form.
Do you think we're
Um,
gonna? Do you think in the future that where AI will generate characters, so you won't even have a human character? Like AI will
you
just
know,
produce the
I
like mostly all the characters. There was a film like that. I can't remember the name of the film. It was one film where the computer generated all the characters in the film.
I'll have to see that. I've
I
not
can't
heard of
remember
anything
the name of the
specific.
film.
Yeah, but I actually, it's funny you say that because, I was pretty skeptical about that sort of thing up until pretty recently. Some of the stuff that I've seen from NVIDIA,
Mm-hmm.
make the graphics cards,
Mm-hmm.
some of their deep learning technology and everything is pretty jaw dropping. Like some of the stuff you've seen them do where it's like, and I think there's that site it's called This Person Does Not Exist or whatever, where it basically
Mm.
generates through, deep learning models and stuff like that of prior photographs, like essentially amalgams or really advanced composites of people that don't actually exist. And so I think I actually watched the other day, I watched a
Mm,
YouTube video where there was two, um, I guess they had done something like that with machine learning, but they basically had built sort of animated versions of those two. And then they used um, the new like language
mm,
GPT-3, I think it is. Hopefully I got that right. But essentially, the new language processing neural network thing.
mm,
And the conversation was, I mean, it certainly was wacky and everything, but it's like you can see where it's going to go. Like it's kind of like the writing's on the wall. I think there's still a long way to go to kind of get past that
mm,
final sort of uncanny valley, where it still looks a little weird or whatever, but
mm.
you can see it getting there. I mean, I think even Roger Deakins, who's like a world famous cinematographer, said that probably in a decade or two, it's a lot of it's going to be done digitally, like characters and things like that. So, and with real time graphics, I mean, yeah, it's you can kind of see what's happening. It's definitely going to be on the way. I think. I don't know how soon. I don't want to make any predictions of how soon, but
Wow. Um, when do you think who will be the last generation that dies?
oh
like I
man,
like
I
when do
I
we?
don't know if I want to try to answer that question. I mean,
Yeah.
I will tell you something kind of funny though. I thought when I started making the short film, with that title, I kind of envisioned, I almost envisioned like myself and my parents being in those places. Now I
Mm,
sort of think like maybe I will be that character who's the old man, and someone's trying to,
yeah.
because who knows how long it's going to take or whatever. But
Mm,
that's, I don't know. I really don't know. From working with Leaf and, as much as I pay attention to the industry, it's really hard to predict. Some people are very conservative about it, as you know, and then some people I think are a bit more optimistic. I mean, I think there's probably some, it seems like it'll be a slow thing where there's a few therapies and treatments that are, available kind of scarcely at first. They don't do a whole lot, and then,
mm,
pretty quickly. I'm kind of curious. I think AI and machine learning might help to bring in a lot of this stuff faster through like quicker, potentially quicker
mm,
like drug trial runs through through AI and stuff like that. So it's hard to say. Things could move with the exponential progress. Things could move a lot faster than I think people think. But there's
mm,
also a lot of as there's a lot of political hurdles and all sorts of stuff. So
yeah. I think that the series that you're doing with the elders is really dope. I like when people like when we engage our elders in things because in Okinawa, their culture, the elders are the longer they live, um the more respect they gain, the more they're looked up to. They're like prized
mm,
treasures in their community, and I just wish that type of mentality and attitude comes to this country. We need that. Like the elders need to know that they're necessary and that we want to keep them here as long as possible. Like,
yeah, man,
like you did your
I
job.
totally.
You know what I'm saying? It's like we got a throwaway culture with the elders. All right, you did your job. We don't want to hear from you no more. Just stay in the corner somewhere. We don't want to.
No, it's true. Yeah, it's kind of sad, and I mean, I do really appreciate that part of Japanese culture, and I mean, I think,
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely. And to your point, it's I mean, the fact is, currently, everyone, unless these technologies or when they come about, may in fact hit that point. So it's like I think there should be certainly like a bit more empathy and, I mean, again, that's a whole. There's so many aspects to that thing, but I agree. I try to think of it that way, and I mean, I also, and this gets into sort of some of the beliefs around life extension. And again, even not necessarily even using that word, just healthier aging. I think is kind of at least for me, is a much more near term sort of realistic approach to it. It's just the idea of
Mm,
aging itself. If you look at it objectively, to me, it's pretty hard to argue that it's a good thing. It's like it basically deteriorates your body and mind, and it's I think it, as many people in the field say, it's like kind of makes sense. This is what's happened for all of
mm,
human history. So it's going to take a lot of time to kind of shift away from that. But you see it, and it's really just suffering. I mean, you see old people walking and trying
yeah.
to make their way through, and it's all, to me, it's a bit torturous from the universe or wherever you want to
Mm,
place the blame, evolution, whatever it is. But the idea that you get to you have to sort of watch yourself. Like it's kind of bleak what I'm about to say, but you essentially watch yourself deteriorate. I mean, that's like, you
Yeah.
know what you once were. We both knew what, being younger and being a child and, 20s and all that was like. And you literally watch it before you slowly, super, super subtly, slowly, day by day, kind of disappear and even get really bad. And I think that's, if we can, like we do with everything else, for the most part, try to some degree to make things better for humanity. Again, there are many caveats. There are a lot of bad things that happen too, but I think if we can move in that direction of trying to reduce the suffering of aging, I definitely think it will be a good thing. So
Let me ask you about your series where you interview the elders. How um how many people have you interviewed so far, and are you still looking for people to interview?
yeah, so I've done two of them so far. One of them is finished and online. It's actually on Leaf's YouTube channel, and then the second one, we just got cleared today, so that one will be going up very soon. And then I'm actually working on a hopeful interview for the third one, working out the details. It's not 100% confirmed, but it's looking promising that'll happen. And then I've got a few other ideas for potential people. But
Mm,
I was actually just talking to Keith Comito from Leaf about other potential people we could interview and sort of
mm-hmm.
yeah, because I think it's to your point about elders. I mean, the other thing I love about doing this series is there's just so much wisdom. I mean, there's so much wisdom you can gain, and
Mm-hmm.
even the two interviews that I've done, it's pretty amazing to be able to ask these people, and just get the response of what they've learned, and
Mm-hmm.
you just sort of absorb that in a way, that I think is pretty powerful. So
Yeah, because I seen a bodybuilder. He was like 60 something years old. He was in better shape than I was. He was competing. I said, "Oh wow!" And then this is another lady. She's 81. Her name is Shepherd. I can't remember her last name. Damn. But she's a great bodybuilder. She's in perfect shape. And I'm trying to get her on the show. You should get her on your show too, because she probably has a. I want to. Her diet is probably crazy because she's in perfect like shape. She's 81 years old. Like it's
wow.
crazy. It's crazy. So
Yeah, I mean, when you see that, that's just remarkable. And,
it's
it's,
crazy.
I mean, I don't really bodybuild or anything, but like, I do try to exercise a lot and stay in shape. So I'm hopefully
Mm,
I'll,
it's
age that way
crazy.
as well. So
Um. The Hive, is that a situation that you're still continuing working on?
yeah, we are. So like I said, right now, it just got into a festival called Series Fest. So basically, we've created one episode, which is our pilot episode called Trace, and that, like I said, it's in Series Fest right now. It did just get a semi-finalist in another festival, Fade In Sci-Fi Awards, I think. So
Mm,
it's all. We just started festivals a couple months ago with that one, so we're kind of working it through festivals, and the idea there is to kind of try to garner some more interest through festivals, but also yeah, we're kind of we're continuing. I think there's a little bit of question about the direction. We're trying to sort of figure out, like, are we going to try to turn this into a full-on TV series? Are we just going to work on it in terms of a digital web series? And there's some funding things we have to sort of figure out, and sort of logistics and stuff like that.
mm.
But yeah, we're very much continuing. It's definitely moving forward, and we have a couple of other episodes already written and ready to go, and some other concepts and things that we might do as well. So
What is the Hive? What's the plot of the Hive? What is it about?
so I guess this is really, it's more of an anthology series. So each episode will have
Oh, I
a
see.
totally different set of characters and things like
Oh,
that.
okay.
So, but in a nutshell, what we try to do with this is um, just create a show that primarily really does take a look at social issues and how technology, like not just social issues and not just technology, but really each episode should have a focus on how those two interplay. And so you do see some of the future looking at stuff like racism and classism and
Mm,
gender politics and all that sort of stuff. So I mean, it's basically like, yeah, just because once again, I think there's the technology side of it and what's coming in the future certainly has an impact on all of that stuff. So it's like, just trying to take a look at that. And then on the more, I guess, grander side of it, that's where it gets a little bit more sci-fi. It's like we're sort of toying with some ideas about the universe, and it sort of starts with the idea of the Fermi paradox, where it's like, if we look out there, we haven't found intelligent life, and that maybe that depends on who you talk to, but
Right.
but essentially, it's the idea that there's most likely life out there. Where is it? And so we're kind of toying with some ideas about how that life might inform current humanity, and possibly some parallel universes and stuff like that. So it's, like I said, it's kind of in the works. Definitely, we're sort of feeling out a lot of those bigger pieces, but it's got a lot of interesting sci-fi components to it as well. So
Sounds dope. You know what? I speak to I speak to a lot of filmmakers, and you know what film I would love to see done? Something I don't know why it's just something on Robert Effinger. You ever seen remember back in the day they had Amazing Stories?
do you remember that? Wasn't that a Spielberg thing? I think
Yeah.
or yeah.
I I always feel like there should be an amazing story about Robert Effinger, because his story is just so dope. Like, I don't know why we don't never bring his life story to the big screen. What do
I'll
you
have to be
feel?
honest. Actually, I don't know who that is, to be honest with you.
Oh, he's the father of Chronics, Robert
Oh,
Effinger.
okay, okay,
Um,
gotcha.
yeah. So, yeah, that's why I mentioned it, because what do you think about Chronics? Some people like, some people don't think it's, they
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
like the
I'll
idea.
take
Some people don't, which is fine.
for sure.
Which
Yeah,
is
I mean,
fine.
the most simple way I can put it is that I would much prefer biological, aging therapies, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like first of all, I'll just say that I haven't really um, dove in as much as I probably should to really speak on it, I guess.
Mm-hmm. That's
I
fine.
think, I mean, it's certainly like, to put it simply, I don't have a cryonics plan or anything like that right now.
It's fine.
I think I won't rule it out though. I mean, part
Mm.
of that might just be being a little bit younger and not taking it as seriously or whatever. But also at the same time, this is going to sound probably, I probably don't want to say this to, because I'm sure there's some scientifically it's not sound or whatever, but
It's all good.
I do kind of, I think there are concerns, and this is like a classic thing where it's like, you know, you're taking a risk by putting yourself in that, and who knows what's going to happen in the world during that time or
Right.
whatever. Now, of course, they're going to say, well, you're at least, do you know what happens when you don't do that? It's like you're probably going to die or whatever.
Mm.
So I don't know. I mean, it's it's definitely something I should think about more, I think. But I do inherently, it does feel a little odd, and maybe I haven't quite, gotten past that point. But
That's fine.
yeah, so I'm kind of, I guess I would say I'm sort of agnostic about it at the moment. So
Yeah, it's all good. I don't have a policy with Coronis either, by the way. So don't it's all good. I just thought to ask that question. I asked
yeah,
all.
no,
I'm gonna start asking all the hip hoppers that question too. They're gonna be like, "What? Watch," because I'm
no,
about
it's a
to bring
good
up.
question. I think you'd get a lot of interesting answers from people. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm gonna start answering. I'm gonna start asking them that, because I've been not saying too much on that side of things about chronics. But I'm gonna start asking, have you ever heard of chronics? They're gonna be like, nobody's never asked me that question. But I'm gonna start asking them. Watch. I shouldn't even said nothing, because now they're gonna see this and be like, some of them might go back and watch and be like, nah, now I know he's gonna say this. I should have just kept my mouth shut. Anyway, but
do you normally ask that question to your guests, or
no,
just out of curiosity?
well, the life extension, the people who I know that's in the community, I will probably ask them that question.
Hmm. Yeah.
I will ask them about chronics, but the hip hoppers that I brought on the show, I haven't asked them, but I'm gonna start.
I think you should. I think
Yeah,
that, yeah, they could generate some interesting answers. So.
yeah. Um, what when you if some of my audience is young, what as a filmmaker, what type of camera? Because you know what, I know film is very expensive. Back in the day, if you try to do a movie and you got if you wanted to get a camera, it was probably, if you wanted to do film, it's going to probably be very expensive. But now we have digital cameras, what makes things a little bit more uh, affordable.
Yeah.
What is some of the young filmmakers using these days when they just starting out as a filmmaker?
I mean, probably these days, I mean, I caught the very tail end in film school where we actually did use 16 millimeter film. And, that I'm really grateful for that I just got the opportunity to do that because there's a lot of, it's honestly, it's more difficult, but there's some interesting ways that it teaches you to be maybe
Mm-hmm.
more thorough in some ways. You have to really be careful about the image you're shooting. And it's just kind of an interesting medium. It's right in your hands. It's that kind of thing. But at the same time, obviously the benefits of digital are tremendous, and it's what probably most things are shot these days. But kids these days, kids these days, I guess I would say younger people are probably using some form of, if you're talking like film school, they're probably using mostly digital cinema, which is
Mm-hmm.
like Red cameras or the Alexa. And then on the more, maybe beginner side would be something like a DSLR, which is just a digital still camera, but most of them shoot video nowadays. So you can get,
Mm-hmm.
with a good lens, you can get some really nice cinematic images through that. So,
Wow. Oh, DSLR. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
mhm.
Wow. Um.
Yeah, it's definitely, I would say that part of the technology is really democratized filmmaking. I mean, it's made it, much cheaper and you can get remarkable images, that
Mm,
people, I mean, now the resolution's getting up there, the color science is really coming along, the low light is much, much better. So and the prices kind of continue to come down with the technology
mm.
kind of continuing to rise, so.
Let me ask you: the last generation to die. Where will you be film? I know this. Where will you be filming at? Because I know you're from Chicago. Will you be filming a lot of it in Chicago?
Well, that's a good question, and the answer is we're not sure yet. I mean,
Oh,
basically,
okay.
we're looking at a lot of things. There's a lot of factors to consider. I'm actually I grew up on a small farm outside of St. Louis, Missouri,
Oh, okay.
so I'm more from there. But I lived in Chicago for a while,
Okay.
and then now Brooklyn. But there's a lot of things to consider, and that's sort of a part of what will happen this year. Throughout the rest of the development part of it. We'll be looking at things like tax credits that you can get for filming in certain locations,
Mm,
and just really, to be honest, most of the time it comes down to price, like where what's the cheapest, what can you get location wise. But it might also, could be factors that come into play with like getting an actor or if we can get this crew or whatever. But most of the time, I would say it comes down to budget. So we're looking at currently Chicago is definitely something I'm looking at. I mean, New York
mm.
is also, because it takes place on a farm and then some of it takes
That's
place
right.
in the city. So we could shoot upstate New York and then
Mm,
shoot some of the New York stuff in the city. Similar in Chicago. I have talked to my mom about maybe shooting it on our farm.
oh, that would be
They
dope.
seem okay with it. But I don't know that that'd be shooting back around the St. Louis area, which has its advantages and disadvantages. So there's a lot of things to consider at the
Mm.
moment. So
Oh wow. Um, I'm definitely gonna place a link in the description of the trailer for the some of your films, so people can take a look at it.
yeah, I appreciate that, man. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
definitely. I know the process to get your film in the film festival must be a long, difficult process, right?
Yeah, it's it just comes down to, I think I don't know, that's kind of an ongoing mystery in some ways. I mean,
Mm,
there certainly can be a strategy to it. The strategy that we've adapted pretty much is, um, it really does kind of pay to research the festival a little bit and see, like what kind of films do they usually program? Like what types of films are they looking for? What types of films have played here before? And then it comes down to price. If typically
mm,
you build something sort of like a budget for how much you want to spend and how much you're willing to spend. I mean, obviously, like anything else, statistically, the more festivals you submit to, the much higher chances of getting into more of them.
mm,
So but at the same time, you can spend a lot of money doing that. So you really want to,
Wow.
I think targeted approach is
Target.
better.
Yeah.
Unless you just do have a bigger budget for it. So
I know there's gonna be a kick ass soundtrack. I know there's gonna be
yeah,
a kick ass soundtrack for that movie. I know I always tell you that when I speak to you, but I know that's gonna be a kick ass soundtrack. You know, I'm a musician, so I'm that's what I'm definitely I'm definitely interested in what the soundtrack, what the music is gonna be like for.
yeah, no, I've thought about it a fair amount, but it's definitely not 100% sealed or locked or
Mm,
whatever. But yeah, I do a little bit of music myself, and I might do a little bit of it. I'm certainly not going to compose the whole thing or anything,
I
but
do see a guitar back there. It's acoustic.
yeah, there's a little keyboard here too, and
Oh,
that's one of my sort of hobbies that I do. And don't take it too super seriously, but I do enjoy doing it whenever I have a spare moment. So
wow. Well, what type of mic? I see you got a microphone there too. It looks like a cool mic. What?
yeah, it's Audio Technica
Oh yeah, I heard of it.
something. Oh, something 47, I think. I can't remember. I
Mm.
actually don't know. That's actually pretty bad. I don't know what mic that is,
No,
but
that's all good.
um,
It sounds
yeah.
very clear. Um, yeah, man. The last generation to die, man. And I want to see more films, tackling these ethical issues. I want to see more sci-fi. Period. Have you ever heard of that? What's that lady's name? Oh shucks, Octavia Butler. You ever heard of Octavia Butler?
I have, yeah. I'm trying
She,
to.
if you ever can get a hold of her books, man, she has some really great books.
Okay,
Um,
definitely
yeah,
heard of.
Octavia Butler is dope, man. What else want to ask you? Um,
Awesome, yeah.
you have you ever heard of the film? There's a film festival in the south of France that everybody always talks about.
Cannes Film Festival, is that
Cannes.
a major? Yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah,
definitely probably one of the biggest in the world. I mean,
I wish I wish you can get the last generation to die in the Cannes,
oh, I
man.
wish so too. Yeah,
For real,
yeah.
man. That would be dope.
We can hope. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a very competitive,
I can
very
imagine.
big festival, but
Your Emmy award winning. Did you win an Emmy for something?
yeah, I worked on a documentary that was shot in Haiti that did get an Emmy, and so I was a cinematographer for it. So
That's
that
crazy.
was yeah.
Yeah,
So
I did say that, but I didn't know specifically what was the Emmy award for. All right.
mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of. I don't do as much cinematography work anymore, but I used to do a lot of shooting and more doc style stuff. But yeah, I've done a pretty good deal of shooting and stuff.
Okay. Wow, that's dope. Um. So do you do anything that's anti-aging in your life? That you do you have any type of regimen that'll
Yeah, I mean,
keep
I
you
do.
healthy?
I do all the sort of obvious stuff, I guess. Like I said, I exercise. I usually take. I used to run a lot. I've slowed down a little bit because I know what it can do to your joints over time. But I do. I actually just went cycling right before this interview. Every other day I try to do something pretty heavy cardio.
Mm,
And then I used to do lifting. I haven't been to a gym since COVID, but
yeah, that
so I
was
do some
unfortunate.
bands and stuff. But I'm
Oh,
eager to
bands
get
is
back
dope.
with like real weights.
Mm,
And then I do occasionally I do intermittent fasting. I kind of go through phases where I'll do that
yeah, I do that
for
too.
a few weeks or a month or something. And then usually what happens is I'm traveling and it ends up messing it up. And I so but yeah, I do that. And I'm a vegetarian. I guess more honestly more pesca. I do eat fish occasionally, but so I try to eat mostly plant
Mm,
based food. And then I do take some supplements, nothing too insane, but I do. I do. There's a couple things that. Well, I mean, I do vitamin D,
mm,
vitamin K2. Let's see. What all do I take? I'm trying to remember. I take turmeric.
mm.
Um,
Good stuff.
yeah, and then I take. I've started taking something new called Novos, which is it's basically it's like a blend of like 12 different ingredients, I think, and they're basically
Mm,
targeted primarily towards the hallmarks of aging. So
mm,
they've in terms of the science, there's a whole synergistic effect between these ingredients, um, and from what I can tell, and not being a scientist and everything I've researched, it seems to be pretty sound. And I do honestly feel like I can tell a tiny bit of difference in like skin and
Mm,
just kind of general cognition and things like that.
mm.
And then sleep is probably the one thing that I definitely struggle with, probably the most. I
Oh
know that's like a
wow.
huge thing, and continuing to be, it seems like every study that comes out, it's even more important.
Yeah, it is.
But I do struggle with that a little bit. So I'm trying different supplements, I'm trying different routines. I may eventually do like a sleep study, but it's like I'd say like 50% of the week I have good sleep, and 50% it's either like it can be a little bit. I might wake up early or something like that. So I definitely try to. It's like I'm very aware of it. It's a problem
Mm.
I'm trying to kind of hone in on and figure out and stuff. I'm also a bit more of a night owl, which
Yeah, me
I
too.
tend to stay up a tiny bit later, and then that sometimes
Yeah.
makes it difficult to get up and get to a meeting earlier. So
No, I'm like that too. I'm a night owl. I love to stay
yeah,
up at night. I don't.
and
Yeah.
apparently there's proof now for that. The circadian rhythm stuff
Circadian
is
rhythm get to it
yeah,
gets
it's like
messed
a
up.
real thing. So
Yeah,
I
it
like telling
is.
people that now. I'm like, it's science. It's
Yeah.
so
I was just discussing this with one of my friends. She was a nurse. We were talking about, because she works at night, and I told her, and during the day, make sure it's really pitch dark if you're gonna, so you can get your circadian rhythm in balance, because
mhm.
you need to you want that melatonin in the flow. But so what's some of the what I want to ask you? Are you looking at any good films? Right? Have you seen any great films lately that you like? And who's your
Yeah.
favorite filmmaker? That's what I want to know
Oh,
too.
these are tough questions. It's it's like a constant shifting.
Mm.
Um, I'd say favorite filmmaker. I don't know if I have a favorite. It's really hard to choose. I mean, I'd say favorite films probably classic answer 2001 is Kubrick films are pretty amazing. I just kind of
Mm.
went through a Kubrick phase recently. Watched almost all of his films over the
Wow.
pandemic. I would say um, Tarkovsky is a pretty big filmmaker in my book.
Mm.
Coen brothers are amazing. Um, yeah, kind of the Terrence Malick. I'm a pretty big fan of. Aronofsky, a lot of the classic
Tarkovsky.
stuff that probably most people would say. But stuff I've seen recently that trying to think here. Nomadland was really great. I
Mm.
also really like her prior feature, The Writer. I think she's just really great. What else have I seen recently that really? This is a question where it's like I know I just saw something, and it's like as soon as you ask, it like slips away. It's like
It's all
what was
good.
that? Yeah. So
No, it's all good.
I probably think of it in like 60 seconds. So I'll be like, oh yeah, that was the.
No, it's all good.
So
Um, I definitely when the last generation to die comes out, and it's people could see it and watch it, and I would definitely like to have you back on, so we could discuss this with everyone. Um,
yeah, there'll be a lot to discuss by that time. I mean,
yeah,
the
yeah.
process of making a film is, you know, it's a very unique challenge. It's a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
people describe it as climbing a mountain, and like
I
so.
understand.
Yeah,
Trust me,
it's
I understand. I know a couple
yeah,
of filmmakers. It's very tough to put a film together.
yeah.
Very. The
I
process
mean,
is
there
no
are people.
joke.
Yeah, it's almost like nearly impossible when you start thinking about the odds, how much the
Hmm.
odds are stacked against you. And
Yeah, yeah,
but I'm learning. It's just kind of a constant, slow, every day. Just try to do more work on it and try to, make strategic moves. And I think you can get there. You just have to kind of have that
yeah,
sort of patience and mentality to keep going. So
yeah. Well, we're looking forward to it, Tim. And I'm gonna keep promoting it because I think that it's a great film, and it's gonna be a good discussion for everyone who watches it to have with their family, their friends, and in public. You know, because I think that if we can do something about the aging process, if we can just slow it up, or we can get people interested in and putting their attention there, that would be. I think that would be a great thing. You know.
I completely agree. I really do. I not only do I hope, but I actually really think the film will have that kind of response. I mean, because I think it's such a universal idea to save a parent or save a loved one, or
Yeah,
just look at humanity at large. And I do think this story situated between two generations is a really good
yeah,
spot to kind of examine some of those things. And and I also personally, since I made the short film, I my father passed away at the end of 2019, so I kind of have an I would say a more powerful understanding of
yeah,
what that feels like, and so I think I can, I think that will just naturally translate into the film, and I just, I really think it'll be a powerful emotional experience, and hopefully makes people think and question. If I can achieve that, I'll be quite
wow.
happy with the film. So
Well, thank you for sharing that because I know, I know that your father passed away. My deepest condolences, and yeah, we'll hear from you soon, man. We'll have you back on, Tim, and thank you for sharing your experience with film. We appreciate it, and I like my people, the people who look at the show, they know I like filmmakers. I like art, period. But I definitely like my filmmakers. I'm definitely love films. So yeah, man, be on the lookout, y'all, for the last generation to die.
well, yeah,
That's gonna be no joke. I promise you. All right,
well, yeah,
Tim.
thank you, Matre. I love what you do, and I'm glad you promote artists, and yeah, I think your show's great, and just
Thank you.
thank you so much for everything you're doing. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Tim. Thank you for coming on. One love, y'all.